In this video, I'm going to talk about abort controller and signals. Abort controller and signals are useful when you're doing API call with fetch, or even when you're using time stack query, and when you're doing implementation like use debounds. The thing which it avoids is it helps you clean up and cancel API calls and timer events essentially, so that you don't have a bad state in your code. So the first example which I have here is with an API call. So in this API we have limit and we have skip, and we are calling this to-dos API, which is available here in the dummy JSON. So whenever we call this API, we get a list of to-dos, and depending on the skip and limit, we might get different output. The problem is, let's say we have two API calls going on, which might happen when you have a change in a limit and skip. So since you have not cancelled the old API call, two API call might happen at the same time, and whichever one is later might set the state of this to do, which we don't want. So we want to cancel the API call if we are fetching again. So the way we can do it is we can create an abort controller, which we do by calling new abort controller. I'm not sure why this is failing, and we can pass in a signal here. I realize I just used the Java syntax. So in TypeScript you do const controller equals to new abort controller and pass it a signal and add a cleanup function here. So this would be a cleanup function to do controller the abort. Now whenever this use effect re-triggers, it will first cancel the old controller action which is being performed. So it will cancel the fetch and only allow one API call to be done at a time. Now if you use something like time stack query, you could use abort controller. So if you just search time stack query and signal, you'll get this article about query cancellation, and it will mention this query function takes in a can pass a signal which you can pass to your fetch API and do abort. Now similarly, like the API call, you might want to create a debounce effect, and in the debounce effect you want that the state should be only set once. So for example, user has typed A and now they are typing AA. So you don't want A to be set, you want to wait until a certain number of milliseconds has passed and only then set the last value, which means you want to skip the intermediate value. So I have a badly implemented use debounce state here. It takes it has a use debounce state and a set debounce, and we have a timeout where we just set this state to whatever the original state was after a particular delay. Now the way we can the thing which we want to do is we want to cancel the old set states and only preserve the last set state, which we can do by getting the interval. So this is I'm just getting the timeout, and I can clear timeout. So clear timeout would be clear timeout. Now whenever this use effect runs, it will first clear the old timeout and then set the new timeout. But in this we can also pass a signal. So it has a delay and yeah, so the third parameter which we can pass is a signal. So I'll create a abort controller here and new abort controller, and then pass a third parameter which is signal, and I can do the same thing, controller dot signal dot abort, and it will do the same thing. So you don't have to use a timeout and clear timeout. You can just use abort controller. The reason you would prefer using an abort controller is, let's say you have multiple such timeouts. Let's say you have multiple such timeouts. You don't have to clear each one if you are passing a signal, because if you are passing a signal, writing just controller.abort once will cancel all of these and you don't have to write it individually. So this is actually one of the common interview questions you get when in React. How would you implement an abort controller? So you would do it this way. So this is like a first video in a series of videos which I will be doing on not just React but in Java, in system design, etc., because I really want to explore a lot of topics which I might be able to explore with a YouTube channel. So if you are interested, you could subscribe.